What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's the man welding, and today I got a video that I've been waiting a long time to make, and that is that I am officially 1 year sober. Now, when I say that, I'm talking about I have not drank any alcohol, I have not smoked any weed, and I have not taken any other drugs in over a year. And guys, for me, that is a big accomplishment. Not because I was some sort of alcoholic or drug addict or anything like that, but more so because I've been using drugs and drinking since I was very young. And I'm not young anymore. I'm 34 years old, and I just realized that basically I have lived all of my life consistently being under the influence of substances. Now, I've kind of touched on it on other videos as far as my drug use as a teenager and how I started smoking weed when I was real young and I started drinking when I was young and all that. And, it all starts out kind of innocent. It's all fun and games. You're just having fun. You're getting fucked up with your friends. You're exploring. You're experiencing things, and it's all pretty innocent. But these things progress, and as you get older, they start taking a toll on you, and it's not so fun anymore after a while. Now, I'm not going to make this video and talk about benefits that I've experienced from quitting alcohol, because quite frankly, there's already hundreds of those videos out there. And I think anybody who drinks and who has considered stopping drinking understands the benefits that you're going to encounter. It's not like some big secret, right? But what I want to talk about more so is what led me to make that decision and just kind of the bigger impact of it all, right? So it was not one specific thing that happened. I didn't hit a rock bottom or anything where I was like, man, I didn't get a DUI, I didn't end up in the hospital or anything like that. It was just an accumulation of things I've experienced over the course of the last 20 years. And ultimately, the fact is that drugs and alcohol specifically, has caused me some of the most painful moments of my life, whether that's, really terrible hangovers that I've had, really horrible decisions that I've made while I was drunk, things that put myself in danger, put other people in danger, put my relationship in danger. And not only things that happen to me, but just people I love, right? I have seen the truly dark side of alcohol and alcoholism. People that are very close to me have died from being alcoholics, have, spent months and months and months in the hospital going through. I've seen actual, real withdrawal physically in the hospital from alcohol, and it was unlike anything I've ever seen before. It was terrifying, and it fucking broke my heart to see that happen to somebody who I love. And then to see them go through that and see that they still continue to struggle with alcohol after that, it's eye-opening to the fact that once you become not only just mentally and emotionally dependent on alcohol, but once you become physically dependent on alcohol in particular, it gets its hooks very deep into you, and it's extremely it's a hard battle to fight and to overcome, and I would never consider myself an alcoholic, but I certainly had an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. And what I mean when I say that is I was always the type of, let me give you guys some background, right? And let me just preface this by saying that I don't have any script for this video. I think that's pretty obvious, right? When I hit the record button, I don't even have a general outline of what I'm going to say or what I'm going to talk about. So right now, I'm just kind of speaking from the heart, and I'm just kind of rambling. And I really feel inclined to make this video because throughout my multiple attempts to quit drinking, I, went to YouTube and watched a lot of people's videos that they made and put out there on the internet, and those videos helped me tremendously. So in a way, I feel like I owe it to people to put my story out there, and hopefully somebody can hear it, they will relate to it, and maybe it will inspire some change or just help them through a tough time or anything like that. So now that that's out of the way, let me just give some context, right? I remember the first time I ever drank alcohol, and I was probably like 13 years old. I had snuck out of my bedroom window at night and met up with my buddy, and he had stole some Milwaukee's Best beer from his dad, right? So we met up in the woods at like midnight, 1 a.m, whatever, and he handed me a warm can, I might add, of Milwaukee's Best. And I cracked it open and I took that first sip and I was like, holy shit, this tastes terrible. And it wasn't very pleasant and I didn't really care for it, right? And back in those days, I was way more concerned with smoking weed and taking pills and stuff like that. But then, as I started to be involved in more social events with people my age, alcohol was present in a lot of those parties and stuff. And, I started having drinks that weren't warm Milwaukee's Best, and they were a little bit more palatable. And I started to experience some of the fun sides of alcohol, right? Like just being at parties and hanging out with girls and that sort of stuff. And that was all fine and good. And then fast forward to a few years later, when my alcohol drinking really kind of got out of control for the first time. I would say I was like, I don't know, I don't remember exactly how old I was, 15, 16, 17, something like that. And I had spoke about it in a previous video, but when I overdosed on pills, I started getting drug tested regularly, right? So I had to quit taking pills and I had to quit smoking weed. And during that time, I started drinking heavily. I was in high school. There was a gas station local to me that would basically sell me beer. I knew I had friends who were older who could buy me bottles of liquor and stuff like that. So basically, at the time I was like 16, I had unlimited access to alcohol. And I started hanging out with some older guys, and we would sit around and buy 20 cases of Budweiser and just get drunk all the time. And that was like a good 12 months probably where I was getting drug tested. And during that time, I started drinking very heavily, like all the fucking time, whatever I could get my hands on, basically. And to provide a little bit more context, at that point, my parents were divorced and I was living in a house where alcoholism was present, and I didn't have very, I just wasn't surrounded by a lot of positive influence at that point in my life, right? And it showed in my behaviors. So anyways, I was drinking a shitload. I finally stopped getting drug tested and, started smoking weed again. But the alcohol did not go away. It just basically remained present. And then, you graduate high school, and then it was just going to the beach every day with my friends and getting drunk and going out on the boat and getting drunk and getting drunk and getting drunk and going to parties and getting drunk and having keg parties and getting drunk. And getting drunk and getting high was just it was constant. And it was all good. When you're 18, 19, 17, 20, whatever, drinking is a lot of fun. You have a lot of good times, and you're able to manage the effects alcohol has on your body pretty well, right? You can be up all fucking night partying and then drag your sorry ass into work, and you can just deal with it, right? When you're young, you're resilient and you're tough and you're having fun and it's all good. So then when I was 20, I moved up to Tallahassee, and Tallahassee is a college town, as you probably know. And I'm sure it doesn't take a fucking rocket scientist to know what happens in college towns. There is a lot of drinking, and of course I was out of my parents' house for the first time, and there was just a lot of drinking, It's normal. It's normalized, I should say. So, I was working, and I worked in restaurants back then, catering, different things like that. And drinking is almost part of the culture when you are a professional cook, right? And you're young and you're in a college town. And at the time I was doing a lot of skateboarding, and drinking and skateboarding and smoking weed, they all go hand in hand. So everything that I was doing, there was a culture of drinking surrounded by it, right? And I was, fully on board with all that. We were partying, we were skating, we were working, we were drinking, and just having a good time, and then as the years go on, those things remain ever present. So anyways, fast forward to the point where I'm ready to move out of Tallahassee. I have my first welding job. Still drinking, maybe I had slowed down because I started getting a little older and the parties were less frequent and I had more responsibility. So that type of binge drinking in a party atmosphere slows down. But now you start getting into going out to bars, going out to breweries were really popular, going to the liquor store. And that's when I got into what I would say is definitely a problem, is drinking alone, right? Say I'd get off of work or get home from the gym and I would just pour up a nice fat mixed drink, like Crown and Coke on the rocks, something like that. And I've always been the type of person that I'm pretty high strung, and alcohol is a depressant and it helps me unwind and relax, just like it helps a lot of people do that, right? And it is effective, and that's why people tend to use it. And but I found that I would drink regularly, and I would sometimes drink while I was alone, and that is obviously a red flag, right? But anyways, then that went on, moved down here to Fort Myers, and same shit, at this point I wasn't really going to parties. I wasn't really skateboarding all that much. I was pretty into exercising and just working and spending time with my girl and all that sort of stuff. But I would always, buy beer and keep beer in the fridge, or have a bottle of liquor. And I'm just the type of guy that if I have a bottle of liquor, it's not going to sit in the house untouched for weeks and months. I'm basically going to drink it in the course of 2 to 3 days. And then maybe a few days will go by, and then I'll get the urge and I'll go buy another bottle. And then, my wife is not a big drinker. So whatever was in the house, I would consume it. If it was there, it was going to get drank. And if it wasn't there, it would probably only be a matter of time until I bought some and then it was there. And then it got drank, and these cycles just tend to repeat themselves. And, as you get older, that alcohol starts to take a toll on you to where you don't handle those hangovers as well. And maybe, you start having physical effects negatively. Without going into too much detail, I think everybody kind of knows what I'm talking about. So anyways, I have been wanting to quit drinking for a couple of years now. It's always been something that's kind of floated around in the back of my mind. I probably knew that if I really wanted to be the best version of myself, that included not drinking. So there would be attempts where I would try to moderate, and maybe that would last for a short amount of time. But I found that there were many failed attempts to either quit drinking or to moderate. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, I decided I was going to quit drinking for real. And I went 7 months without any alcohol. But at that time, I was still smoking weed for a little bit. And I felt pretty firm in my resolution not to drink, right? But then I went on an annual scalloping trip that we do with our friends every year. And one of the guys had brewed his own beer. And I kind of convinced myself, I was like, oh, well, I'll try it. He brewed it, whatever, I'll have one beer. And I drank a beer there. And of course, no one pressured me to do that. It was something I was struggling with even on the drive up to where we were staying, where we were going scalloping. I was going back and forth in my head, man, I want to drink, but I don't want to ruin my streak, and blah, 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 blah. And, that doubt started creeping in. And ultimately, I gave in to temptation I was not forced to. I wasn't peer pressured into it or anything like that. It was a decision that I made on my own. And ultimately, what that resulted in, that one beer, was like a year-long binge, because I continued to drink while on that trip. And then when I got home, I bought a bottle of liquor, and then it just basically spiraled out of control to where I was right back to where I started, if not worse. And then, you find yourself at a point eventually where you say, enough's enough, I'm going to quit drinking. And you might last for a week or two, and then, your motivation wanes and you pour that first drink, and it's just like, it is a vicious cycle that a lot of people find themselves in. So ultimately, let's get to the point where I stopped drinking. The last time I got really shit-faced wasted was not the last time I drank. So let me talk about both those things. Last time I got really wasted was like December 16th, 2022. It was at my company's Christmas party, right? They threw a Christmas party at one of those axe-throwing whiskey bars. So we went there and we were having a good time. I was a relatively new employee with the company, and I was friendly with everybody, and there was, the company was paying for all the drinks. So I was having a bunch of nice whiskey and drinking beers, and I got fucked up, right? And up until that party, I was almost like on a drinking binge where I was getting drunk like damn near every day for like 2 weeks probably before that party. And then I got really shit-faced at the party. Now, I didn't make like an ass out of myself or anything like that. I mean, probably a little bit, but not anything out of the ordinary for someone who's been drinking. But what happened was, after that party, I ended up getting very sick, along with a lot of other people, right? And so I was out sick for like 2 weeks. I had a terrible flu. It was really bad. And then I just kind of had some time to reflect or whatever, and I decided, and I thought about the people who I know and love who struggle with alcohol, and just an accumulation of everything. And I really realized that, here I am at the time, 33 years old, and I've never lived life with any sort of clarity mentally. I've always just been walking around in a fog of alcohol and drugs. And it's like, granted, I have made pretty amazing progress in my life, but if I'm being honest with myself, I knew that the decisions I was making was holding me back from really being the best version of myself. And I don't want to hold myself back anymore. I don't want to make excuses for not being in the position that I want to be in. And I just felt like I owed it to myself to not keep shooting myself in the foot by drinking and fucking doing all this bullshit. So anyways, New Year's Eve rolls around, 2022, and my wife was out of town for like a family emergency that she had that was also alcohol related. And so I went and I bought a 6-pack of the Heineken Zeros. And I was like, yeah, I'll just drink these. And I did. I drank all 6 of them, and I went to a block party that was happening in my neighborhood. And I was drinking my Heineken Zeros, and everything was cool. But then I ran out of Heinekens, and I was smoking a cigar with a couple of guys in my neighborhood, and one of them offered me a beer, and I accepted the offer, and I took it was like a big bottle of Corona. And I drank it, and I just felt like kind of disappointed in myself, and I knew that, okay, after tonight, like, I'm done drinking. And then I drove to downtown Fort Myers at like 11 o'clock at night, and I walked around, and of course, everyone was wasted. There was a shitload of people everywhere, and I was planning on getting a drink there. And I had walked to go to this bar, and there was some dude standing at the door, and I was like, yo, get the fuck out of my way. And he's like, oh, you don't meet the dress code to come in here. I was like, bro, are you fucking kidding me? So anyways, I didn't end up going into that bar because I wasn't wearing the proper attire. And it just kind of like turned me off to the whole thing. And I just like got in my truck and drove home. And I cooked myself dinner at like midnight. And I was like, all right, that's it. Like, I'm fucking done with this bullshit. And here we are. Today's January 4th, 2023. And I have not had a sip of alcohol since that Corona back on New Year's Eve 2022. And, you know, I am extremely proud of myself for doing that. It is huge because, like I said, I have had many failed attempts at quitting drinking before. And before I was able to quit smoking weed, I had many failed attempts at quitting smoking weed. And now, have I been tempted over the course of these last 12 months? I would say minimally. You know, yeah, there are certain times where like getting drunk sounds nice or having a drink sounds good. And I have resorted to non-alcoholic options on a few occasions. Probably on 8 different occasions I've gone out and bought non-alcoholic beer and had like ordered mocktails at bars and shit like that. And even when I'm drinking those non-alcoholic beers, I still feel like a small little sense of like failure and guilt, even though it's not failure and I don't really need to feel guilty about it. But just having those internal notifications, they tell me that, you know, I have had a mindset shift. I know a lot of people view those things as potentially triggering. For me, they haven't been triggering. You know, they kind of scratch that itch. But do I recommend that people get in the habit of drinking those? No, not necessarily. But for me, they do come in handy on occasions like Super Bowl or whatever. Or just if you're out with people at a bar and you want to have a beer, you know, whatever. Get a Heineken Zero. It's not the end of the world. And, yeah, I mean, this year has had a lot of ups and downs. A lot of really terrible things that were out of my control happened. And, you know, that sucks. But as far as a year of personal development and growth for myself, it's been one of the greatest years ever, you know, and I don't think that would be the case if I was still drinking. As a matter of fact, I know that wouldn't be the case if I was still drinking. And I know that I'm just going to continue to make forward progress in life and not take back steps and not shoot myself in the foot and not sabotage my own progress and my own potential. And, you know, this video is getting long, and I'm sure I will absolutely speak on this subject again. But like I said, I felt like I owe it to the world to kind of put my story out there and share it with people, because people sharing their stories helped me a lot when I needed it. And, you know, I will just say, I'm not here to tell people whether they should or should not drink or they should quit drinking or anything like that. I just know that alcohol and alcoholism and alcohol abuse and has caused me so much pain in my life, and I want to rid myself of that pain, and I want to help other people rid themselves of their pain that is associated with that stuff as well. So guys, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for checking out this video. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Bye.